Well, let's see. We got 2 out of the 3, all 3 of the top podium finishers now. In the broadcast waiting room is, once again, Daytona does not disappoint, and it lives up to its name. And under the lights in prime time, you can expect it to go next level as it did here in the big house. Gave these drivers a moment to talk with their fans, family, and they are now standing by. So let's go ahead and transition to post-race coverage right here on Racers Elite Network. Looking for Gary Bowman, Chris World, and Ed Jurgen in the 92 ride. So you sit there in a cluster. And why not, hey? Went out there and drove your tail off and put it in the podium. That's what matters here when all is said and done. Joining me now in the Tony Trapasso Memorial broadcast booth. Drove his tail off this evening in the 40 machine. Chris, how the heck are you after that performance under the lights in prime time?
Man, I'm feeling good. Happy to be here, second place. Wish I would have held Gary off at the end, but he was able to see my moves and snuck around me.
You know what? That's the heartbreak sometimes of a place like Daytona and Talladega. And I've been in those moments, and quite frankly, I'm always on the outside looking in. But nonetheless, I mean, everything pretty much went your way this race. You kept that 40 clean. You were able to generate those positions and those runs when you needed to. Describe the heat of the battle in those closing laps of the race. What was it like? What was the game plan? And ultimately, how did you end up coming across the line P2?
Yeah, all race we were watching our fuel strategy and kind of knew towards the end if we could push the early stages of fuel, we could make it towards the end, and kind of just counting it down and kind of making sure we were within the right window to go ahead and go full throttle and caught everybody else kind of running out of fuel or sleeping on the fuel until that final lap was just the 3 of us at Lounge Racing, all just having fun to see who could take away the win at the end. Yep, still here.
As I was saying, before I cut you loose, who do you want to thank? Who helps you get it done on the Florida? The floor is yours.
Man, I got to give a shout out to the Broncos here on this number 40, and then also my teammates over at Lounge Racing, Gary and Ed, helping the whole race, keeping the strategy alive. So big shout out to them.
Well, there he is, ladies and gentlemen. The guys at Lounge Racing weren't lounging around the night. They were up, getting after it on the wheel, pulling off all the moves at the right time, dialing up the big-time energy. Comes up just a little bit short, but Chris will take that and the momentum. Comes up with a solid second-place finish. Enjoy your evening, and I hope I speak with you again really soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Matt.
Appreciate your time, sir. And that right there is a pumped-up individual. Double-edged sword here at Daytona. It's either emotion like that, energy, or you're just sick and heartbroken. But hey, it's all about those good times that make you coming back for more. As we continue on, let's speak with our third place finisher, a guy that's probably been overdue for a finish where he deserves to run his Ed's a great driver behind the wheel. Joining me now, pilot of the number 92 Chevrolet ZL1 Camaro. Ed, you got a copy?
Yeah, I got you, man. Don't worry.
Hey, man, I'll tell you what. You always got speed in that 92 machine, but somehow, some way, things seem to happen here that kind of throw a monkey wrench in your plans, and you don't get the finish that you're capable of getting, or that performance that car that you're driving is able to achieve. Tonight, it seems you kind of get the proverbial monkey off your back, and here you are in the money, or I should say on the podium side of things, in that third place finish. How are you able to put it together and be there when it mattered at the end?
Yeah, well, we had I had a couple teammates going with us, so we were able to save fuel and enough fuel each run. And but what you're saying, getting into trouble there, I had to mow the grass in the infield. A lap car came up on us, and I had to avoid them.
That lap car, last week I made a joke about maybe pulling the lawn care off your race car and you'll stop getting sent down there. But when you got sent down to the flatlands into the grass, did you think you were going to be able to save it, or was at that split second did you think it was game over? You're just holding on for the ride at that point.
No, I thought I could save it, but once I got airborne, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, it got went code brown, quick, fast, in a hurry on you. But
Yeah, I got a new shorts coming.
hey, look it. If that was me, I'd be right there with you. Maybe a little bit worse than you are right now. You still sound pretty calm and collective, given what you just been through on the virtual Daytona Beach International Super Speedway out here. But describe the fuel strategy out there tonight. It seemed like the mentality out there on the racetrack was to save almost. It seemed like for 80% of that race, and maybe that wasn't the case, but that was the vibe I was getting up here in the booth. Is that kind of how it translated down there on the racetrack?
Yeah, we just the three of us just wanted to qualify up front, get up front there, and then we just dropped back, and then we fell in line, and we were just half throttling the whole time, and we knew we had to from the beginning, otherwise we wouldn't make it.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, you got to have enough go fast in the tank to make it to that start finish line. I mean, you could lead every lap up to 99, but if you don't come across the start finish line in that order, it's all for nothing. So I completely get what you're saying. You kind of that hand was forced, but you guys did a really good job, and here you are, get some momentum. Will we see you? What do you think you can do with this momentum next week? Now I know this is really a plate track, but hey, momentum is momentum in my opinion. You get those synergies going, and we've seen it in real life and on the simulation side of things. You do that, and you can start to generate a run. What are your expectations for next week? How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm not sure where we at next week again.
And I think I may have lost you there.
I'm sorry. Where exactly are we at next week?
I think you're asking me what track we're at next week. Let me go ahead and pull up the schedule for you. I apologize. I couldn't hear you there for a moment.
Oh, yeah. It might have been my fault.
There you go.
But,
I can hear you loud and clear now. So next week, in the next gens, we're going to be at the Monster Mile, going to race on the concrete.
Okay. Yeah. No, I got some. I should have some good speed there. Just got to manage tires.
Manage tires, and hopefully Miles the Monster is on your side.
Yep. Hometown track.
Oh, there you go. So this one is going to be extra important to you. So look forward to you going out there next week and putting on a show. Before I cut you loose, who do you want to thank who helps you get it done on the 92?
Yeah, just, first of all, thank you guys for putting on a good broadcast. Andrew for running a great league, and Chris Wald and Gary Bowman for hanging back when I got in a little trouble there going through the grass. Well, kept the strategy going.
And I appreciate the compliment, but I will tell you right now, the broadcast tonight was disastrous. The moment I went to click live, my whole computer locked up. It froze. And that most recent update iRacing did, you know when they update things, how resources and utilization changes, and it was not pretty. I was able to get it back live. Was not my best effort, and I apologize. But at least I was able to get us to this point where we're interviewing you after going out there and putting on a great show on the racetrack, and you have yourself a great evening.
All right, man. I'm sure it was still good, though.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
All right, take care, man.
And that, of course, the voice of the 92 ZL1 Chevrolet Camaro comes home. E3 up 6 positions from where he started, which means 2 down and 1 to go. Bowman the Showman, Matt up top in the booth. You got a copy, sir.
Hey, how you doing, Matt?
Man, how am I doing? How are you doing right now? You just won at the Big House under the lights in prime time. How are you feeling?
Pretty good. Yeah, our strategy worked out. And, yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have enough fuel at the end to burn it down at the line. But yeah, it was a good run. We're all working together good.
It was a great run. I mean, that was absolutely superb. I mean, you come into this race, what was the logic, the mindset for attacking this race? I know you started inside of the top 10. kind of like that split decision ground. Do you go towards the front or do you kind of chill and go towards the back? But with the fuel mileage strategy, the way that this kind of race played out, you didn't really see that intense racing, which I think kind of limited the big one or the more incidences from happening on the racetrack. Did that change your strategy in the way that you attacked this race at all?
Yeah, we were pretty much all together, my teammates and I, on the start of the race, and we just kind of ran up front there. We didn't push the issue, and unfortunately Chris was leading, so he was burning more fuel, but we were all talking with each other, and we definitely wanted to push that first run as far as we could. I think we made it to 28, I think, 27, 28.
Absolutely. And then obviously when it comes to go time and you light the wick, hit the afterburner, I mean, you guys had a slugfest, a heavyweight boxing match out there under the lights. Walk me through those closing laps. Did you think you were going to be able to come across that line P1?
Yeah, I was backing off a little bit to get a run on Chris going into 3, and then he saw that, so he backed up. So when I saw him coming back, I shot around. I said, "Screw it, I'm going to go on the outside and try to pass him." And then we got into a side draft contest there through 3 and 4, and then I was expecting a door slam coming to the line, but he raced me real clean. So yeah, it was a great finish.
A great finish. I mean, usually when you have that, when you have the car that tries to pull a fast one and sneak back, that's one thing because he can get the run back to you. But when you have multiple cars lagging back, that kind of changes things up a lot as far as what your offensive defenses are. And you guys had a 3-way, as you said, a 3-way grudge match side drafting special coming to the stripe. My concern was when you side draft like that, there's a lot of cars typically with momentum coming behind you, and you can always get freight trained at the very end. That didn't happen, but that thought did go through my mind. But nonetheless, what an exciting, high-flight, high-octane, entertaining finish. Before I cut you loose, go ahead. Shout out who you need to. The floor is yours.
I got to say a big thank you to my lovely wife for putting up with me with this racing stuff, and then my teammates, Chris and Ed, and you, of course, for doing such a great job with the broadcast, and Lounge Racing team, and that's about it.
Well, Gary, I appreciate that, and I'm going to tell you the same thing I just told Chris a couple moments ago. Tonight's broadcast was disastrous. I had a hardware problem the minute I hit live, and my whole system locked up, and it was not my best effort, but I appreciate that.
Well, yeah, sometimes computer gods like to play havoc with us. So.
Yeah, but I appreciate that. But I just wanted to be honest with you. When you go back and try to watch it, it doesn't start off pretty, but we did the best we could.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Well,
all right, that's good, man.
Well, there he is, ladies and gentlemen. Gary Bowman, the virtual showman, lights it up here at Daytona with a 3-wide side-by-side battle for the finish. He gets across the line ahead of the 40 and the 92 of Ed Jurgen. He's your winner tonight. He'll take it back to the pits, burn it down, perhaps a couple adult beverages, and we'll see him again next Thursday night in competition as they take on Miles the Monster at Dover.
Happy Mother's Day, man.
Oh, that's right. Happy Mother's Day to all the...
Happy Mother's Day to everybody.
That's right. See, I appreciate you guys for thinking of everything. Sometimes you guys really save me because I have people that are listening, and I'm probably going to hear about it when I take this headset off. You have a great rest of the night, my friend.
All right, you too. Catch you next week.
Yes, sir. How about Gary Bowman? What a drive from him. 3 Chevrolets. In fact, you got to go all the way back to that 5th place position before you find a manufacturer that's not bow tie related. But then, as usual, we got to come to these types of times, but all good things must come to an end, including this broadcast, which was absolutely horrible. And I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Did the best I could with what I had available to get this thing back running. As you heard some of the drivers say, I want to wish all of the mothers a happy Mother's Day out there. Got to thank all the partners, sponsors, Andrew Teft, all the league admins for all the work that they do behind the scenes to make this league as great as it is. And as the late, great Tony Trapasso used to say, as you walked on the road of life this week, do us all a favor. don't play in traffic, and we'll see you next time right here on Racers Elite Network.
There he is.